There are things you expect when you take a quiet walk through your own neighborhood. A breeze through the trees, the distant sound of kids laughing, a polite nod from a passerby. You don't expect to be harassed, let alone assaulted. My name's Janelle. I'm 7 months pregnant, living in a quiet suburb where the biggest scandal is usually whose dog got into whose garden. I thought I was safe here. I thought wrong. That afternoon, the sky was a soft, powdery blue, and I was just trying to stretch my legs after a long morning cooped up inside. I had my earbuds in, walking slow, one hand on my belly, when I noticed him, khaki shorts, mirrored sunglasses, clipboard tucked under his arm like some wannabe official. He was pacing along the sidewalk, stopping every few steps to squint at something. I didn't think much of it at first, until he started staring at me, really staring. I pulled out one earbud, smiled politely, and kept walking, but his footsteps fell in behind mine, heavy, deliberate. You ever feel someone watching you so hard you can almost hear it? That's what it felt like. I quickened my pace. Then his voice, sharp and loud behind me. "Hey, you can't walk here without permission." My heart jolted. Permission? To walk? On a public sidewalk? I turned slowly, confused, and that's when it all started. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if anything like this has ever happened where you live. You won't believe how fast things spiraled, or who stepped in when it mattered most. I stared at him, trying to make sense of his words. Permission? My hand instinctively dropped to my belly, a silent shield. "This is a public sidewalk," I said, my voice low but steady. He smirked, a cold, crooked kind of smile, and whipped out a laminated badge, the kind you'd find in a kid's costume set. "Neighborhood Compliance Officer," it said, with a logo that looked suspiciously homemade. "This is a private HOA area," he barked, puffing his chest out like he expected me to salute. I knew better. Our neighborhood didn't even have an HOA. It had been voted down years ago. Too restrictive, too invasive. I opened my mouth to tell him exactly that. But he stepped closer, close enough that I could see the red flush creeping up his neck. "People like you think the rules don't apply," he hissed, voice low, almost gleeful. I froze. I knew exactly what he meant by "people like you." My stomach twisted into a tight, nauseous knot. I took a step back, and that's when it happened. Without warning, he lunged forward and shoved me, hard, right in the side. My feet slipped on the cracked sidewalk, arms flailing. Try to catch myself without hurting the baby. Pain shot my hip as I hit the ground, the impact jarring through my entire body. I gasped, clutching my stomach, terrified. He loomed over me, sneering, like he was daring me to say something. Tears blurred my vision, half from pain, half from rage. And then, from somewhere behind him, a voice cut through the air like a knife. "Hey!" Step away from her, now! I didn't know it yet, but someone had seen everything, and they weren't about to let him get away with it. The man's whole body jerked at the sound of the voice, loud, commanding, and close. He spun around, and that's when I saw them, two people sprinting across the street, a man and a woman, both mid-30s, both furious. The woman, a petite redhead in yoga pants and a sweatshirt, reached me first, dropping to her knees at my side. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice shaking. I could barely nod, my body still reeling from the fall. The man, taller, broad-shouldered, stormed up to the fake officer, getting right up in his face. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted, the kind of shout that vibrates in your chest. The fake HOA guy stumbled back a step, waving his clipboard like a shield. "I'm enforcing community guidelines," he sputtered. "She doesn't belong here." The words hung in the air like poison. I saw the redhead's face twist into something fierce. She turned to the man who had helped me and hissed, "Call the cops? Now." He was already pulling out his phone, his thumb moving fast. Fake HOA guy must have realized the tide was turning because he suddenly started backing away, muttering under his breath. But it was too late. More neighbors were pouring out of their houses. Curious faces peeking from porches. Phones already recording. He looked around, realizing he wasn't in control anymore. His bravado cracked like thin ice. I could hear the sirens in the distance, getting closer. The woman at my side squeezed my hand gently, whispering, "You're safe now." Just breathe, sweetheart. And for the first time since the nightmare started, I actually believed it. But the nightmare wasn't over. Not yet, because when the police arrived, they didn't head for him. They came straight toward me. The flashing lights painted everything in sharp, jarring color. Red, blue, like a broken carousel spinning too fast. I sat there on the ground, my hand protectively cupping my stomach, while the woman knelt beside me, murmuring reassurances. 2 officers jumped out of the cruiser, one with his hand already hovering near his belt. And just like that, all the air seemed to get sucked out of the street. "Is there a problem here?" the taller officer barked, looking not at the man who assaulted me, but right at me. The fake HOA guy, seeing his opportunity, jumped in. "Yeah, officer," he said, breathing hard, his voice slick with fake concern. "She's trespassing." I asked her to leave, and she got aggressive. I was just defending myself. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. It felt like trying to scream underwater. The woman next to me sprang to her feet, her face flushed with anger. "That's a lie. We saw the whole thing. She was walking peacefully, and he attacked her. She's pregnant, for God's sake." Other voices rose up around us. Neighbors who had seen, neighbors who had filmed. Phones were pointed in every direction, some recording, some already dialing. The fake officer tried to wave it all away. "They're just covering for her," he snapped. "You know how it is around here." And that's when the second cop, younger, sharper-eyed, looked at him differently. "Sir," he said, voice cutting through the chaos, "you got any ID on you?" The fake officer faltered, his whole swagger draining out of him like water from a cracked bottle. He stammered something about official business and protected authority, but the damage was done. He wasn't the only one being watched anymore, and this time, nobody was buying his lies. The younger cop didn't waste another second. "ID, now," he repeated, his voice leaving no room for argument. The fake officer fumbled in his cargo shorts, pulling out a wallet that looked way too ordinary for someone claiming to be an official anything. The cop flipped it open. No badge, no government card, just a worn-out driver's license and a few crumpled receipts. No authority, no right, no power. The tall officer, the one who had looked suspiciously at me, stiffened, glancing between his partner and the crowd gathering around. You could feel the shift, the collective realization that this man wasn't some neighborhood protector. He was just a bully, playing dress-up. "You're not law enforcement," the younger cop said coldly. "You're impersonating an officer. That's a felony." The man's face went beet red, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping on dry land. He tried to protest, to spin some nonsense about being appointed by a local committee, but it was too late. One of the neighbors, an older black man with a slow, deliberate way of moving, stepped forward, holding his phone high. "Got the whole thing right here," he said, voice steady. From the second he put his hands on her, murmurs ran through the crowd. Someone else shouted, "Me too." Got it from my porch cam. The fake HOA cop turned in a circle, as if looking for a way out, but there wasn't one. The officers exchanged a brief look. Then, before the guy could bolt, the younger one moved fast, grabbing his wrists and snapping on the cuffs. He yelped, actually yelped like a cornered dog, as they read him his rights. I just sat there, trembling, the woman's hand still on my shoulder. Finally, the truth was out in the open. As the officers led him away, cuffed and scowling, a cheer rippled through the crowd, not loud but real, like a collective exhale after weeks of holding their breath. I sat there on the curb, heart pounding, limbs aching, trying to process what had just happened. I should have felt victorious, but all I felt was hollow, shaken, vulnerable. The woman knelt beside me again, brushing my hair back from my face with a gentleness that almost broke me. "You're safe now," she said again, but her voice cracked, like she wasn't sure she believed it either. I blinked up at her, finally able to croak out, "My baby? I need to make sure he's okay." Her face tightened with worry. "Come on, my car's right there. Let's get you to the hospital." A few neighbors stepped forward, offering jackets, water bottles, whatever they could. It was overwhelming. The kindness pouring out after such cruelty. But in a way, it just made the lump in my throat bigger. Why did it have to take something like this? Why did it always take something this awful for people to pay attention? As they helped me to my feet, a woman with a gray ponytail caught my eye. She looked ashamed. She looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. I knew that look. It was guilt. Guilt for standing by too many times before. I let it go. I had bigger things to focus on. As I climbed into the backseat of the Good Samaritan's car, I caught a glimpse of the fake HOA cop through the cruiser window. Slouched low, eyes furious, like he was a victim. It made my stomach twist. This wasn't just about one bad man. It was about a sickness deeper than one afternoon could cure. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and worry. I sat propped up on a stiff cot, one hand gripping the crinkly paper under me, the other never leaving the curve of my belly. The nurse, a kind, soft-spoken man named Darren, moved quickly, setting up the fetal monitor. "Let's just make sure everything's okay, all right, Mom?" he said gently. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. The rhythmic thump-thump-thump of my baby's heartbeat filled the room a few minutes later, strong, steady, beautiful. My chest caved in with relief. Darren smiled. "Sounds like you got a fighter in there." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, tears welled up again, uninvited and hot. Darren didn't flinch. He just pulled up a chair and sat, giving me a minute to fall apart in peace. After the exam, after the doctor reassured me the baby was fine and there were no signs of trauma, I knew I couldn't just go home and pretend nothing had happened. I asked Darren quietly, "Do you know anyone like a lawyer? Someone good?" His brows lifted slightly, but he nodded. "Yeah, actually my sister-in-law. She handles civil rights cases. She'll want to hear this." He scribbled her number on the back of a visitor's pass and pressed it into my hand. "You're not alone," he said, squeezing my fingers once before stepping out of the room. Those 3 words stuck with me. You're not alone. I clutched the paper in my hand like a lifeline. I didn't know how messy this would get, if the neighborhood would rally behind me or pretend none of it happened. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let that man or people like him think they could get away with it. Not this time. 2 days later, I sat across from her, Camille Brooks, civil rights attorney, no nonsense and sharp as a blade. Her office smelled like fresh coffee and printer ink, a little messy but alive, like somebody who spent more time fighting battles and arranging picture frames. Camille tapped her pen against a notepad, eyes flicking up to meet mine. "I've already seen 2 videos," she said. "Witness statements are pouring in. You've got a case, a strong one, assault, false impersonation, civil rights violation, possibly even hate crime enhancement, depending on how the DA reads it." My heart thudded heavy against my ribs. I'd come here half hoping she'd tell me it wasn't worth it, that I could just move on. But hearing it laid out like that, so clear, so undeniable, made the anger rise again, burning hotter now, sharper. What'd I have to do? I asked. Camille smiled grimly. "You leave that part to me. But if you're ready, you need to be loud. Visible. These people, cowards like him, they count on silence. They count on shame." I swallowed hard. I wasn't someone who wanted attention. I liked blending in, living quietly. But he hadn't given me that choice anymore. Later that evening, with Camille's encouragement, I posted a short video online. Just me, in my living room, raw and shaky, telling the story in my own words. No editing. No fancy hashtags. Just truth. Within hours, it exploded. Thousands of views. Comments pouring in, some hateful, yes, but more supportive than I could have ever imagined. Local news stations called. Advocacy groups offered help. And just like that, the quiet little suburb that had pretended not to see suddenly couldn't look away. The man who shoved me, he was about to find out exactly who had been watching that day and how far I was willing to go make sure he never did it again. By the end of the week, his face was everywhere, not just on local news, but splattered across national outlets too. Man posing as HOA official assaults pregnant woman. Caught on camera, suburban nightmare. The headlines felt surreal, like they were talking about someone else's life. But they weren't. This was my life. The life he tried to shatter with one shove. Camille worked fast, filing civil charges alongside the criminal case already underway. The cops who had responded that day, especially the younger one who pushed for the ID check, backed up my side of the story. Video evidence didn't lie. Witness after witness lined up, furious and ready to speak. Even the neighbors who had once avoided me, who had once crossed to the other side of the street, now waved or left flowers on my porch, awkward and ashamed. Part of me wanted to slam the door in their faces. Part of me just wanted to heal. The man who attacked me, he pled not guilty at first, tried to spin the whole thing, claimed he felt threatened. He was enforcing safety. But the videos crushed that defense like a tin can. His trial loomed, and Camille assured me we were ready. But even with the victory stacking up, there were nights I sat in the dark, hand on my belly, replaying all over and over, wondering if I could have stopped it somehow, wondering why just existing, just walking, could be seen as a provocation. One night, while scrolling through comments on my post, I found a message that stopped me cold. It was simple, no fanfare, no hashtags, just 6 words. Because of you, I spoke up. I read it 3 times, my chest tight. Maybe I couldn't change the whole world overnight, but maybe I'd already started something. The morning of the sentencing, the sky was heavy with low gray clouds, the kind that make everything feel muted and slow. I sat in the back of the courtroom, Camille by my side, the small gold bracelet around my wrist glinting every time I fidgeted. The man, I stopped thinking of him by his name weeks ago, stood stiffly at the defense table, a shell of the smug bully he had been that day. His lawyer mumbled through one last plea for leniency, painting him as a man who made a mistake in a high-stress environment. I stared at the back of his head, feeling nothing, no anger, no pity, just a hollow kind of distance, like watching a movie I'd already seen a dozen times. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was crisp, final. 6 months county jail for the assault, 2 years probation for impersonating an officer, mandatory civil rights education, and a public apology to be read in court. He turned slowly, shoulders hunched, hands trembling. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I was wrong to touch her. I was wrong to pretend to be something I'm not." I didn't believe it for a second. But the words weren't really for me. They were for the record. Proof that no matter how much he wanted to rewrite the story, the truth was etched in ink now. Permanent. After court, I stepped outside, breathing the cool, damp air. Camille touched my shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. I nodded, blinking back tears. It didn't erase the fear. It didn't undo the pain. But it mattered. It meant something. As I walked slowly back to my car, one hand resting protectively on my belly, I whispered to my son, "You're going to grow up in a world where your mama fought back." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.